I was never more in need of a nap than growing up in the sweltering desert heat of Southern California. There's always something about just the oppressive sunlight and over 120-degree heat summers that just made me want to shut down for the day. If I could hibernate from the months of, August to August, I would have loved to have done it. And there are a lot of times, like if parents were doing errands, I would be like, no, I don't want to go with you. I'll be in the car, it's fine, crack a window. And inevitably they would come back from going to the post office, dropping a letter off, and then coming back, and I'm just sticky and gross and groggy. I always refer to these types of naps that, not because you really want to take a nap, but because you're forced to nap, as a type of dirty nap, in the sense of, I feel awful when I wake up. And indeed, I felt awful waking up because there were awful conditions that put me to sleep to begin with. And it's these types of conditions I start to think about when I think of the ancient monks in Egypt around the 3rd century. These Christian monks would go off, and some would live by themselves, hermits, but some would come together and form little monastic, proto-monastic communities. One of them in particular was named Evagrius of Pontus. And Evagrius was a writer. And he wrote about these 8 deadly sins that we now today know as 7. 7 today because one of them in particular got combined with sloth, with laziness. And that was the spiritual danger known as Acedia. Acedia comes from this Greek word katos, which means care. And then whenever it's Greek and you put a in front of it, it negates whatever follows. So acedia, simply put, is a lack of care. And it's very interesting that this got labeled with the spiritual life, because originally acedia and this lack of care was given to burial rites. It was given to burial rites, and the danger that could happen when we don't properly care for our beloved deceased, namely when we don't bury them. And there were 2 great dangers that could come about from doing this. One, it robs the beloved deceased of their dignity of a Christian burial. But then 2, it robs the person, the living loved one, of their humanity. Because humans bury their dead. Humans take great pains to see that their loved one is taken care of, not just in this life, but in the life to come. And that is a very human thing to care for the dead. Evagrius comes along and applies this to the spiritual life. Acedia. Further, it has a more of a common colloquial name, the Noonday Devil. And it's such an apt name to give this spiritual danger. Because much like myself in the deserts of Southern California on those hot summer days, just imagine what it was like for the monastics of 3rd century Egypt. No air conditioning, no fans to cool themselves off. Oftentimes they had spent the days away working, but then also fasting. And even though everything is going right in this monk's life, generally what would happen from the hours of noon to 2, that blaring sun would be directly above them, and they would find themselves in this very real, literal, physical torpor. And it was very hard to continue the rest of the work of the day. Evagrius noticed this, and noticed this lack of care, this acedia that was brought about by the noonday devil, and attributed it to the spiritual life. And it seems today that those hours of noon where the sun is high and blaring down upon us has lasted for a very long time. Those hours of noon to 2 seem to stretch on, well, further than we could probably see. And it seems like that's really one of the big issues of not just the church, but the world today. We all seem to be fighting this noonday devil. And on a personal level, what are the tools at our disposal to begin to fight this noonday devil, to begin to fight acedia? Well, as a spiritual director of mine is fond of saying, perhaps maybe too often, if you can't feel it, you can't heal it. And it's his tongue-in-cheek way of trying to say, if you can't name your problem, then you don't really know you have a problem. That noonday devil can start to be beaten back if we notice, God, I am tired. God, I don't have it in me to pray. God, maybe I don't want to pray right now. Because a lot of the times, as we talked about last week, a lot of it is getting caught up in this busyness of our lives, which, while a lot of those things are indeed good things, you have to go to work, you have to study. We likewise can't forget that man, by his nature, is a religious being. Religious because he is meant to connect with something deeper, something real, something divine. Like burying our dead, not following in the spiritual life robs us of our humanity. And if we could start to then just notice that this is happening, we can start to draw attention to it and remedy it in our lives. The noonday sun has been blaring on a lot of us, myself included. I definitely feel it too. But how can we come together as church and begin to fight back that noonday devil? Call it out, draw attention to it, reorient your life to the Lord, invite the Lord in. Let that divine physician do what he wants to do in your life and radically transform it. And that noonday devil will begin to be beaten back again and again.